Hi Dimitri, how are you? Sorry, I was sharing
Hi,
all
how
the
are you?
information. How are you?
Yeah, doing all right. Hope it's not too late. I guess it's almost 10 p.m. for some people.
Yeah, well, I think it will be fine. Um, we'll wait like around 6 more minutes. I'll
Yeah,
start
yeah,
bringing people in, and yeah, it will. It takes always a little bit time for the room to fill up until
yeah,
people
I
see the
totally get
room.
it. Yeah, of course.
That's why I start a little bit earlier, but I think people know I start earlier, so it's
Everyone knows now.
Hi Denise, how are you? Come up. Hi Nas. You guys wanna come and up to the stage? How are you? Haven't seen you in a while.
Hi, Katerina. Pleasure to see you. Oh,
It's
Dimitri.
a,
I'm just gonna change my PTR real quick because I don't know how well this is gonna play.
yeah, I almost didn't recognize you. What's that about? What's the PTR about?
We'll change it to something a little bit more spectacular, like the stars. So this is very exciting work. I'm really looking forward to this presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Hope I'll give a little bit more of the general introduction as well, not just focus on this specific work.
Absolutely, yeah. Did you have anything good to eat today?
I'm sorry?
Did you have anything good to eat today?
Nothing special. Still Thursday, Friday's tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So it's special plans for tomorrow then.
Yeah, usually, yeah, for me.
Does I don't know if here in New York there's no. It's probably something I didn't know before, but a bunch of places have this summer watermelon salad with like feta cheese and like salad and stuff. Did you ever try this? It's so good. It's really good. I never ate watermelon with feta cheese or any other cheese before, but it's really good.
Yeah, I think I've heard of the combination, but I don't think I've tried this.
I have tried it and I am a fan. It's not even that hard to make at home if you wanted to.
Yeah, for the summer. Like usually I like gazpacho and stuff, but this summer I've been eating that salad all the time in like different ways of combinations. It's really good.
She's converted.
Yes, I. My grandmother used to she still does always eat fruits with real food. She always mixes fruits with I don't know rice and meat and stuff. And I've never been a fan, but this time I am. So-
Was the watermelon grilled this time, perhaps?
No, actually, it's just raw. I never tried watermelon with like she usually uses like pineapple and stuff. Like
Sounds good.
other yeah.
Grilled watermelon and pineapple are fantastic. If you've never tried, I do recommend.
Oh, I have to try it. No, I've never tried it. I will. Hi everyone. Uh, we'll start in a few minutes. Thanks for coming. Share the room if you feel like there's something you would like to share. Hi Katie, how are you? Haven't talked with you also in a bunch of days. Come up.
Dimitri, have you tried either grilled pineapple or watermelon?
I don't think so. No. One weirdest thing I tried in Texas is the deep fried pickles. Surprisingly tasty, I have to say.
Yeah, that definitely can be very tasty, especially if it's with a beer batter and a beer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so when I came to the US, I moved first to North Carolina, and we went to a fair, and there was like fried everything, and these humongous turkey legs that people would just hold in their hands and eat it. Did you ever see that? Did you ever went to a fair in like the South?
Sounds like a
Like
Renaissance fair in the north.
no, it's like I don't know. Like everyone was running around with this huge turkey legs. Maybe it's just in North Carolina. I don't know. Anyone else? Maybe in the room ever ate like a whole turkey leg in their hand? It's
Katie,
probably
is that a
good.
thing down in Australia? Do people walk around at fairs with giant turkey legs, eating them?
No, not really. Hi, loves. Good to be in a room with you guys. I'm excited for this conversation. But no big turkey legs at fairs.
Kangaroo legs, maybe? No? Maybe a little.
Possibly. That's more apt for Australia.
Yeah, I ate kangaroo meat at some point. It was not bad. It was pretty good actually. So Denise asked if Dimitri ate something good today. That's how we came up with the topic. But I promise everyone this is not the main topic today. You didn't come here to listen to my watermelon salad conversation.
Well, unless it raises your blood pressure.
Right. That's true.
Oh my god, that could be
So,
a totally an experiment. See what the differential is when people consume watermelon. I think that would be an interesting little tie-in.
right. Hi, Dr. Shah. I'm so happy the crew is back here. So happy to see
Hi,
you guys.
Katerina and everyone. Happy to be here.
Hi.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
me too. Okay. Um, so
Yay,
just
hello, Dr. Shah.
oh yeah. It's so great to see everyone. Hi Susan, hi Julie, hi Amy. Um, yeah, it's wonderful to see everyone. So I shared the papers with the links and the open source links that Dimitri shared with me earlier in the chat. So if you want to look at them, copy the links for further reading later on, please do so. And the presentation is pinned on top. But before we start, let's introduce our guest speaker here today. And we'll go from there. So, welcome everyone to Science Society, and a special warm welcome to our guest speaker here, Dr. Dmitry Kireev. And I hope I'm saying the name right this time. I'm really bad with saying names right. And let me give you a little bit of information about Dr. Dmitry Kireev. He is currently a research associate at the University of Texas at Austin, and he is working on merging the fields of 2D materials, bioelectronics, neuromorphics, and biomedical engineering. And he is contributing to the development of bioelectronic devices with long lasting implications in healthcare and medicine. and he's currently collaborating with Professor Dei Akiwande and Professor John Ann Incorvia, and amongst other faculty members at the UT Austin. And he is really interested and committed to advancing the field of bioelectronics using 2D materials. And Dimitri, he did his PhD at the Institute of Bioelectronics of Forschungszentrum Jülich and RWTH Aachen, University, Germany. And there he worked on graphene-based devices for neuronal and cardiac in vitro bioelectronics. And he is also the recipient of the prestigious Nano Scholarship, and he performed his master's at the KU Leuven and Calmers University of Technology with majors in nanoelectronics. And when he is not doing science, he likes to brew his own beer, which is really cool. So welcome, Dimitri. We are so honored having you here. And before we start, if that's okay with you, I'll ask you like a couple of questions. So how come you're in science? Like, how did you choose your career path or your life in science? Was there maybe something like parents, a teacher, a book, something like that that sparked your interest?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, Katerina, thank you very much for this very lengthy introduction, and I'll be happy to talk about beer brewing as well at the end if somebody is interested in. To your question, I've been thinking about it, have a lot of this kind of conversations. How come you're in science? Why did it come here? Why are you doing this? Honestly, no idea. I never had this defining moment when I knew, somebody says, oh, I knew since childhood I want to be a professor. I want to be in science. It's never been this situation for me. It was always, I don't know, I guess just sort of went with the flow, and it's just, things happen. I just like where I am right now. I enjoy it. There was one pivotal moment when I moved from nano and quantum electronics to bioelectronics, and I guess I will talk about it a little bit later.
Okay, yeah. I think it's really interesting to learn like everyone's path, how they became who they are today or working on what they are today. So thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
for this project, is there maybe like some backstory, behind the scenes story that people could learn about? Like, was it hard to get this project together? Was it very easy? Did people believe that you can do it? Like, is there maybe something that you would like to
Well,
share?
yeah, it was. So I think this project was sort of long in the brewing, even a little, maybe approximately when I came to the US. So I came to the US for the postdoc, and I started working with Professor Kireev at UT Austin. And we were working on graphene tattoos, and we're always looking for, well, let's say, killer applications, right? So like these graphene tattoos, they're cool, nice. We can use it for ECG or brain activity, heart activity monitoring. All of this stuff is, let's say, cool and interesting. But this is something that you can do with other devices as well, even with modern ones. We were really looking into the killer application, and that was there is one of really long-term collaborators from Professor Akiwande, Dr. Rusbeh Jafari from Texas A&M University, and he is an expert in blood pressure, computer science, and so let's say computer science, electrical engineering, biomedical engineering, and specific focus on monitoring blood pressure using, let's say, more standard devices. And this is where we really saw in the beginning that this is really the match where we could have a really big impact using the graphene tattoos for continuous long-term cuffless blood pressure monitoring. So something that you can make, yourself maybe at home without visiting a doctor, for example. Yeah, I guess that would be the story.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I heard that many discussions from medical doctors and about this. So I agree, it's really important and a great indicator. But I don't want to take away from your presentation. I know it's a really cool and beautiful presentation. So the stage is yours. We will look at the chat and bring people up when they have questions. And yeah, thank you for making this wonderful presentation for us.
Yeah,
Thank.
of course. Yeah, of course. Thank you. And I know it's quite late time for some of you, more later, and maybe a little bit earlier for others. So I just want to make a little bit easier, a little bit lighter, and I would love to answer questions. Once they come, I'm using my phone actually right now as well, and I try to make my presentations a little bit more fun, viewing friendly. So I hope you'll find them useful. There is also lots of videos. Usually I have lots of videos, but I couldn't because then the file would be too heavy. So I put a lot of links and like QR codes in the presentation for your own quick reference. So you can click on the link and it gets you to this I usually supplement the information from our videos. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult for me to monitor the chat for the questions. So I would appreciate if somebody just unmute yourself and just ask a question right away. All right, so yeah, let me then move on to the presentation itself. So yeah, I guess I'll just point you to the slide numbers if you're interested in. So I'll start off with about myself, and Katerina has already introduced that I've done my PhD. Oh, sorry, well, PhD too late. So I did my bachelor's and master's in National Research University in Moscow, in Russia, and that was, as I mentioned, was more about quantum physics, nanoelectronics, semiconductors, solid state, and that was pretty much the basic of my undergraduate education. And after that, at the end of my master's, I got accepted into this amazing European Erasmus Mundus Master Nano program, and that was between two universities, KU Leuven in Belgium and Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden. And that was really amazing program, at the interface of bio, and the people who did bio, the people who did electronics. And sometime by the end of my master's, I was at the conference. I was presenting something I did I believe, in my internship during IMEC. And then I saw a poster. There was like a poster about people using graphene transistor, and then they grew cell on top of it, and then they measured the electrical activity of the cell. I had no idea at the time that it's possible. I just saw it, and it just fascinated me at the time. I thought, this is amazing. This is something I really love, and it's something I think I want to do my PhD on. Just clicked in me, applied for my PhD for one open PhD position, and I started working there 3 months later. And that was in a group of Andreas Offenhäuser in Forschungszentrum Jülich. And so it's a research center in Jülich in Germany. And I got at the end, I got my PhD degree from RWTH Aachen, because the degree has to be given by the university. So then I did like a very quick stop as a postdoc in the same institute. And then I decided again to sort of just expand my own expertise while working with studio materials. So all this time I was also still working with studio materials. And then I decided that I need to expand my expertise. And then this is when I joined Professor Kimwanda Group and UT Austin, working on wearable ETA2 applications and maybe using them for some kind of wearable bioelectronics. Yeah, so that was about me. Let's move on to more the main part of the presentation, right, the bioelectronics. So if you can look at, for example, slide 3, right, we have bioelectronics that's everywhere around us. Electricity, electronics is within human body. And the birth of bioelectronics, or it all started pretty much over 200 and what is it, 20 to 150 years ago, with Luigi Galvani. And if you can, there are links on slide 4. I don't know if you haven't been familiar with the frog experiment, when they decided to apply electrical potential to the nerve of the frog leg, and it started moving. There was a lot of misconceptions at the time of what exactly was happening, but that, we could decide that this is pretty much the birth of bioelectronics at this moment. And if you then go to slide 5, there is a little bit of messy slide, let's say, on modern bioelectronics, right? So on one side, you have biology of DNA, you have brain, you have organs, you have heart, you have just individual neurons. On the other side, you have microelectronics, high-density boards, microchips, supercomputers, antennas, and both of them work on a very different set of properties in a way. So like biological part is very soft, it's elastic, it's living, organic, it's very complex, but also changing all the time. And very important, it consumes very low power. On the other side, you have electronics, which is hard, rigid, programmable, yes, but it's inorganic and consumes way larger power, but it's not the main part of this talk, at least. The softness, rigidity, and being organic, inorganic, this is pretty much the biggest problem of current bioelectronics and current problem of incompatibility of, let's say, silicon or your electronic systems that you currently have in your computer. You cannot really put it in your brain or in your tissue just because they're incompatible on the fundamental level. And what I highlighted on slide number 6, that 2D materials, in contrast to silicon, in contrast to any kind of rigid devices, this is a potential solution. They are soft, they're elastic, they're transparent, they're skin conformable, as you can see on the example of graphene tattoo on the right part of the slide. They are, while they're being soft and elastic, they're also strong, they're organic, they're very thin and flexible and biocompatible. There has been a lot of misconceptions about biocompatibility of the 2D materials, especially graphene. I can very concretely tell you that the devices, at least the graphene that we use to make graphene tattoos, and most of the, say, electronic circuits, it is very biocompatible. And I'll be happy to get into this discussion later if somebody is interested in. On slide 7, you can see, a huge family of 2D materials. I don't know if some of you might be familiar, some might be not. Besides graphene, that has been in the play since 2004, so almost 20 years now, 18. There is a big family of these 2D materials, even like single, graphene as a single hexagonal structure of carbon. You have boronine, silicene, germanine, stannine, phosphorine, and then you have transition metal dechalcogenides, MOS2, WS2, WT2, etc. So there is over 100, maybe even few hundreds of different 2D materials that have been already studied, have been already predicted theoretically. Some of these 2D materials have been predicted theoretically if you date maybe 40, 50 years back, actually. But right now they are being made, and there are a lot of exciting electronic and translated to, let's say, bioelectronic properties of these 2D materials, which I personally think we can finally explore and make some final devices that are useful for, let's say, modern healthcare in a very short term for modern healthcare applications. On slide 8, I show a little bit of the importance again of 2D materials, that most of them, specifically graphene and some other ones, they have really good electrical and electrochemical properties. They are flexible, they have high carrier mobility, biocompatibility, as I mentioned. Very important is there is a high surface to volume ratio, and there is a big sort of sensitivity of the surface of these 2D materials to what's happening in the surrounding. Just because you have this atomically thin layer of atoms that pretty much expose to the environment the whole bulk of the material is exposed to the environment. And this is why they're excellent sensors, biosensors, or electronic tattoos, as I will explain in the very big details later. So if you go to the next slide, slide 8, right? So we might think of electronic tattoos as this kind of QR codes or barcodes at the back of the hand. I wonder if people want to speak up about what are the other applications, alternatives of e-tattoos you might have in your mind. Say when somebody says electronic tattoos, what pops into your head?
Nothing. This is literally the first time I've ever heard of it, but I bet I'm the only one.
Okay. Well, all right. I mean, you can probably, think of just some kind of sci-fi movies, right? I believe there was a movie where there was some kind of implant, like time implant in the head, and they were paying with it, this kind of electronic tattoos, for example. So there are a lot of sci-fi applications or sci-fi visions of that. And if you go to slide 10, this is the graphene electronic tattoos that we have in mind. This is the electronic tattoos that we work with in the lab. They are made of atomically thin CVD grown graphene that is supported by a very thin 200 nanometer layer of PMMA. It's a very classical polymer. So as you can see, we can place, big array, a huge number of these devices on the skin, and it is very conformable. As you can see on the picture on the top right, so it is even conforms to the micro cracks and like really small microstructure of your skin. And this is the big advantage of the graphene tattoos over any other wearables. And then on slide 11, I have this highlight vision of why do we think it is important, or for example, where could these devices be used for? And on one side, let's say on the left side, you can see this text that says direct sensing, that you can measure, heart activity, muscle activity, brain activity, ocular, touch, temperature, vision. It is sort of, I call it direct because this is sort of simple and straightforward these days, and it is a very easy to transform from one signal to electrical and very easy to interpret it. On the other side, you have this indirect sensing of very complex values such as cardiovascular, blood pressure, metabolism, lung, local vibrators, vibrations, sweat circulation. So these are very complex values that also you cannot simply record. And these are some values that you need a few steps of measurement to go from A to Z. There is usually a lot of machine learning involved. So you need to employ a lot of sort of AI, machine learning, big data to correlate this measurement that you do to the real world, to the final applications. And also a lot of these applications such as cardiovascular, I mean, they are deadly. I mean, as you can see on the picture on the bottom right, cardiovascular diseases related death relate to approximately 18 million deaths per year, which is pretty much 2 populations of New York City each year. So, and on the other side, if you Google, you can probably even find this. World Health Organization says that majority of the cardiovascular diseases can actually be prevented by the lifestyle changes. So most of these diseases that happen, it is possible to prevent them. But the problem is we do not have technologies to detect them, to correlate what we're doing, the lifestyle, that they would lead to the problem. This is my personal big vision, to have this kind of device, to have this kind of long-term monitoring, sensing, indirect sensing. Doesn't have to measure all of it, but it can tell you, okay, Dmitry, you've been drinking too much beer for the last week or month. If you'll be on the same path for the next year, you will have a problem with your blood pressure in 5 years. This is the big vision of this work specifically. And on the next slide, you can actually, let's now look a little bit back into the past, right? So we can think of what has been done and how did it come to, let's say, even classical electrophysiology. And there is a picture, a black and white picture of the first electrocardiogram developed by William Einthoven way over 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and they got a Nobel Prize in 1924. And this is a machine that takes pretty much the whole room. The person puts their hands in the salty water, and there is a whole machine that applies electricity, measures the cardiac signal. They made amazing science at the time, but is it really wearable? Is it something that you can do this at home every day? No. Luckily, there has been electronic tattoos that there are a few examples on the next slide. There are electronic tattoos that have been developed over the last decade using gold, organic semiconductors, that have been measuring, electrical activity, brain activity, or ECG, such as heart activity. So it is done. People are working on that, and thinning contemporary electronics down and being able to put it on the skin, it is great. But can we do better? And on the next slide, slide 14, this is the first attempts on using the graphene tattoos for electrocardiograms. As you can see, they're placed on the chest, on figure A. There is an array of graphene electronic tattoos, GETs. This is the GET stands for graphene electronic tattoos. So they're placed on the skin, on the chest, and they're measured ECG signals pretty much with the same quality as your doctor would do. You can also measure EMG, electromyography. So this is muscular activity of any muscle you have any muscle you have, and you can measure the same EMG signal with pretty much the same quality. By the way, I made most of the links on this slide clickable in the case if you want to have a quick access, so you don't have to Google them. Yes, so now this is slide 15. There should be video, so if you're able, just go ahead and click on the link, scan the QR code, or go to this very recent Nature Nano publication in the supplementary information. And there is a video on how these graphene tattoos are placed on. I can just talk over it a little bit while maybe some of you are going in there. So the way these graphene tattoos work is pretty much the same as you've probably been doing when you were in the childhood, with this temporary image tattoos that you had on a piece of paper. You make it wet, you put it on the skin, you apply a little bit of water, and then you just slide off the paper, or let's say, remove the paper, and then you just have the image part on the skin. And in our case, we have the graphene tattoo sticking on the skin while this paper is gone. So this is the classical transfer of the graphene tattoos that we are doing. And we can do this on like normal scale, let's say just one tattoo at a time, or you can transfer a whole array, such as in this case, there are 6 tattoos that are transferred at the same time. So then again on slide 16, there are a few more videos, so just bear with me. On the screenshots on the slides, you can actually see there is an array of something like 12 graphene tattoos on your wrist. And on the videos, you can see that we are pouring the water, or the wrist is being moved very rigorously, and the tattoos is still staying on the skin. So this is really, and the most important part, it's not that they're just staying on the skin, but they're staying at exactly the same location where we place them on. I will come to this specific point on why it is important specifically for blood pressure. I'll come to this probably a few slides later. On slide 17, there is a little bit of the graph, and there are some details. Let me just walk you through that as well. When we started working with the graphene tattoos, we started using monolayer graphene tattoo, just imagining that this is the best, highest quality graphene we could come with, and this is what we've been doing. But the more we were using this monolayer graphene devices, the more we realized that one layer graphene is prone to problems. It is prone to small cracks, small problem in the performance. So there's, a little bit of crack or a fault in the graphene would result in a really big change in performance. And in this case, there are two performance metrics that we've been using. This graphene tattoos to skin impedance, that's on graph A, and the sheet resistance, that's on graph B. So you want the lowest impedance and the lowest resistance. And as you can see, the monolayer, single layer graphene devices usually have, first of all, the highest impedance and the highest resistance, which is bad. But on the other hand, what's even worse is that they have the highest standard deviation of this performance. So we could have one device that it performs really well, but then we could have another device that performs really bad. And this is worse than just, if we could have all devices that perform bad, but then consistently we could work with it. But this inconsistency is the problem. So then we developed the process of making bilayer and trilayer graphene devices, pretty much sticking one graphene onto another graphene, while having it all within a single PMMA. And this seemed to have solved the issue. And with these days, we're typically going with two-layer graphene tattoos. There are a few pickles here about graphene nanoscrolls. This is what GNS stands for. I wouldn't want to cover this now. I'll be happy to discuss this later if somebody's interested in. Again, the links are clickable if you are interested in. So now, let's think of the applications, and we'll slowly get into this work of blood pressure, right? So what are the applications? So if you can go to slide 18, just think of what you can do, right? You can have this kind of EEG implants, or let's say your heart activity sensors. You can wake up in the morning and you can think about the coffee, and the coffee machine would start brewing, right? Or you could just sit on your bed and think about your next amazing grant application idea, and it just connects to your word and it will type it yourself. Well, maybe sometime in the future. Of course, easier, you can just connect it to robotic hands or drones, for example, right? So like to have the flying drone. And this has actually been done if you look at slide 19. Again, there is also a video, so if you want, while I'm explaining it, click on the link and there will be a video about that. So this is an application of human-machine interfacing using graphene tattoos, the work that was actually performed slightly before I came to UT Austin. And we sort of refeatured this in a recent Nature Protocols paper as well. So the technology is called electrooculography. So, if you look up, down, left, or right with your eyes, there is a certain depolarization happening between cornea and retina of your eye. And this is called electrooculography. So if you then tune this, if you can pick up the signal, put it into OpenBCI, this is a simple device that actually costs something like $500. You can connect it to this OpenBCI that is wireless. You wirelessly connect it to the laptop, and then you wirelessly connect it to the drone. And in the video, if you look, and there are a few screenshots here, when the person is looking up, there is a small delay just because of the programming and the computer issue. But when the person looks up, the drone flies up. When the person looks down, the drone flies down, etc. The person looks left, the drone flies left. So this is just one amazing application of the graphene tattoos, and it is really important that you can put them on the face, right? You wouldn't want to wear something that's visible. Imagine you have this invisible kind of graphene tattoos on the skin, and you can control some robot with just your gaze. I find this amazing. And so now let's move on to just go to slide 20. There is a picture of a human hand, could probably be mine, with an array of the graphene tattoos. And this was the latest work that we use these graphene tattoos to monitor human arterial blood pressure tirelessly, cufflessly. So then if you go to slide 21, there is a small snapshot of a human in a 3D with arteries that's coming out of the heart, and Yeah, unfortunately, this is just a snapshot. This has been a GIF. So, when your heart beats, there is the blood flows through your veins, through your arteries. First of all, through your arteries, then through your veins. So the blood goes through your arteries, and while going through the artery, there is a small change in volume everywhere that propagates. Imagine like there's like a small bulb of blood that goes through the heart. And this is the indirect feature that we are recording. So if you go on slide number 22, so we're using this technology, so-called bioimpedance, that is pretty much four-probe sensing technology. For those of you familiar with, let's say, Kelvin probe or four-probe resistance measurements, right? So if you, let's say, if you have two-probe sensing, you apply the potential and you measure the current, or the other way around, through the same two probes, you are limited by the interface. So, and in this case of measuring from the skin, the interface would be in tens of kilo ohms of impedance. Now, if you're doing the four probe sensing, you're actually injecting the current on the outer electrodes and measure the voltage at the inner electrodes. And by doing this kind of separation, you actually bypass this interface impedance, and you only measure impedance of the tissue. And in this case, there is something like 1 ohm. And by doing that, the impedance of the tissue is then, that is actually very nicely explained on slide 23. So on the right, there are these graphs. In A, this is a standard, volumetric arterial volume change of the blood flow. When you have systolic pressure and diastolic pressure, the volume changes, the volume of the artery changes. And because the volume of the artery changes, the recorded bio-Z, the bioimpedance changes. So we can correlate this, the shape of the bioimpedance to the blood pressure. I have to say it is a little bit way more complicated than just this kind of correlation. There is no one-to-one correlation on y-axis, and this is the most difficult part. So this is actually, if this is why slide 24, we're back to the same picture, but now I want to explain it in a little bit more detail. Just go to slide number 25, right? So as I mentioned, we have this four probe sensing, but we are actually having 4 of this 4 probe sensing. So we're measuring BioZ1, BioZ2, BioZ3, and BioZ4, specifically because we don't just want to measure the local change in the volume, but we want to change how this volume changes over time while it propagates from, let's say, location A to location B. And this propagation relates to the time, and because it relates to the time, it's a velocity, and the velocity of this volume change is then correlated to blood pressure. In reality, it is even way more complex. We'll get to there. So yeah, in reality, there is way more complex because you need to employ an actual machine learning. There is AdaBoost machine learning system that is used to actually correlate the bio-Z signals that we record to the actual blood pressure that is also recorded, but there is a little bit more complex correlation system that's happening there. And as I mentioned, the self-adhesiveness and ability to stay in exactly the same location is essential. So imagine that you have this, you build this system for measuring the blood pressure. You correlated the bio-Z signals that we recorded electrically to the blood pressure, and then you say, okay, now I go uninternally, and then let's say at some point one of your electrodes is just moved by 3 millimeters. In this case, your whole system that you've built is gone. So this is exactly why you cannot do this with dry electrodes. You cannot do this with wristbands. You can hardly do this with gel electrodes because they dry and move around a little bit. So graphene tattoos are specifically important here because they stay on the same location, and we can very correctly record from the same time over a very long period of time. Then slide number 26, I will be very quick with it. Honestly, this is not my expertise as well. So this shows the whole experimental electrical circuit diagram that of this recording system. And this is done mainly by our collaborators at Texas A&M University, by Cancel, who is the co-first author actually of this paper. But a few more slides on the details of this blood pressure work. So if you go to slide 27, so the way we did the measurement is that we had these arrays of these graphene tattoos on the human wrist, usually on the left one. And then, well, we could have just measured blood pressure at static, but then we would just have pretty much always the same kind of blood pressure signal over time. Instead, what we did is that each subject, and we had 6 subjects doing this experiment, and there was 1 subject that was doing cycling, but there is so-called cold pressor and hand grip experiment, for short CPHG. So that means that the person for 2 minutes, I might be wrong with minutes, don't quote me on that. So for a few minutes, a subject is exercising with the hand grip very strongly, so your blood pressure raises a little bit. And if you exercise with hand grip excessively for 2 to 3 minutes, believe me, your heart rate and your blood pressure will go up very rapidly. And then when this exercise is done, usually if you just stop exercising, your blood pressure goes to normal very quickly. Instead, we wanted to prolong this change in blood pressure by placing then the human hand into the ice bucket. So the bucket with ice cold water. And what happens is then you record a very prolonged change in blood pressure in both systolic SBP and systolic DBP blood pressure. And this is the scatter diagram on the right. That's what you see there are 6 different colors, 6 different subjects. And for each subject, depending on their normal blood pressure, depending how hard they exercise, what they've done, we recorded a range of blood pressure. And this is very important. This is not just a single static measurement that we've done. And then if you go to the next slide 28, this is a major figure of merit and correlation. So this is for diastolic blood pressure. We have the same for systolic. Just didn't want to clutter it. But this is based on IEEE guidance for any cuffless blood pressure monitoring devices. There are 2 parameters, when you analyze performance of your device, and that is absolute of mean error and standard deviation. And obviously you want both of them to be lower and to be, in our case, we have absolute of mean error almost close to 0. I believe it is something like 0.5, 0.3 of millimeter of mercury. And we have the standard deviation of 4.5. So it falls really well to the so-called grade A performance of the blood monitoring devices. In the same way as capacitive sensors or Omron, that is cuff, or there's so-called I don't remember which the company is doing it, but it's a small watch cuff device that's measuring blood pressure, still using cuff. So we are even better than these devices. And what you can see on slide number 29, that is another very big importance of the work, is that, as I mentioned, we don't just measure individual single blood pressure values as you would do with the cuff, right? The cuff inflates, deflates, and you get one value. What we have continuous change of this blood pressure over time. We can monitor it. So you can imagine that that's important for people with certain diseases that when a big change in blood pressure would be a correlative factor of a disease, or just in general, it might be important to monitor blood pressure over a long period of time, which is currently hardly possible. And it is done in very high grade accuracy. I have to say, in this case, each subject here has been measured for something like 5+ hours. Overall, we got something like 45 minutes to 1 hour on average per person of really continuous blood pressure monitoring. And we could do this for almost a day, and there has been subjects that have been wearing this device for almost 24 hours. Wearing the same graphene tattoos for multiple days is really impossible. It is still possible to scratch them off and just remove them. So what we've actually done, I don't have the slide for that, but what we've done is we had this blood pressure on the subject, let's say on day 1. We performed the measurement, we performed the machine learning, we had the system. And then on day 4, the subject came back, we put new set of the graphene tattoos, approximately on the same locations. So it is not exactly the same location, but approximately. And then we re-recorded the blood pressure, and we could still monitor the blood pressure very well, although in this case, I believe we dropped a little bit in accuracy. We were in grade C for that specific application. So on slide 30, you can actually, again, there is a link and a QR code. So there is a whole video of one subject that's doing this exercises. So on the screenshot, you can see the subject sitting with the left hand on the table with, wired connected to the electronic system. The right hand is exercising with the hand grip, and there is this cold presser tool that once the hand grip is done, then the person puts the hand into cold presser. I have 10 more slides on other stuff besides blood pressure. Perhaps I'll just go quickly over that, and then we can just have discussion, I guess. So there are just a few slides on future bioelectronics. If you go to slide 31, this is my personal vision of 2D bioelectronics using indirect or direct blood pressure, some kind of neuromorphic devices, human-machine interfaces, electronic skin, etc. So on slide 32, I'm featuring another kind of set of electronic tattoos, this time using so-called PT-SE2 and PTT-2. These are platinum-based transitional metal dichalcogenides. These are part of the device's 2D materials that I featured in the beginning of my talk. What's the beauty of these specific 2D materials is that they can be grown at rather low temperature. Like quote unquote low temperature, because it is 400 degrees Celsius. It could be considered large for some people, but for all material science folks, this is really low temperature. And graphene is usually grown at almost 1,000 degrees Celsius. So you can grow this material at very low temperature, means you can actually do this directly on flexible substrates. And then, on slide 33, again, you've seen this kind of impedance over sheet resistance plot, right? So this figure of merit. So you want as low sheet resistance and as low impedance. We compared PT-SE2 to PTT to the platinum and to monolayer graphene to gold and to normal silver chloride gel electrodes. And what we found was actually a little bit expectedly is that PTT2 outperforms really platinum PT-SE2 and even monolayer graphene by far, and it performs better than even bilayer graphene. It was sort of expected, or let's say anticipated, based on other works, because PTT2 is known to be a highly conductive semi-metal or even a metal, and is an emitter of the metal, so it performs really well. And on slide 34, you can see the same applications of these graphene tattoos for electrocardiogram, electromyogram, electroencephalogram, and electrooculogram, so like measuring your ocular activity in the same way as I've already introduced earlier. So I will not stop too much on that. This is just to highlight that there are other 2D materials that could perform, let's say, on par with graphene and maybe even better in certain applications. And then the last work that I want to highlight, this is not so much on the wearables. If you can go on slide 35. This is a very recent work. We still in the process of publishing it, but you can find it on bioRxiv. What we've done is we encapsulate pretty much these graphene tattoos also within silicon elastomers, and on another example with another layer of PMMA, and we made a very this pretty much the smallest cardiac implants ever, and we tested this on the open heart in vivo and ex vivo. So you can see the picture on this slide 35, figure D. So this kind of graphene biointerface was placed on the actual live heart ex vivo for measuring electrical activity, but not only measuring. So we didn't just measure the activity of the heart, but we also managed to use these graphene tattoos to stimulate the heart. And it is important for some kind of deficiencies of the heart, such as arrhythmia. And this is what you can see on slide number 36. This was done on a live rat, I believe. I might be wrong. This was done in collaboration with Professor Yefimov group of George Washington University. And what we've done is there was a rat that had this AV block introduced. This is, I don't know if there are biologists here, cardiologists. This is pretty much similar thing to what cardiac ischemia, not ischemia, cardiac arrhythmia does. So you do have, as you can see on the slide F, there are 4 P waves, but there are no QRS pathways. So there is only 1 QRS per 4 P waves. So this means there is a problem. There is the heart doesn't perform well. Then once this is detected, at some point we started doing the pacing, so sending electrical signals through the graphene tattoo, and we could restore the normal QRS pathway by sending the signal. So we could simultaneously measure, detect this problem, and stimulate to solve it. And this is a really good advantage of the graphene tattoos. And again, they stay on there, they don't disturb the heart just because they're soft and small and flexible. Let's go to the conclusions and outlook. So this slide 37, and this is what I want to really highlight here, that there's a lot of biosensing that we can do. There is a lot of really great application of 2D materials for bioelectronics or some kind of manufacturing, additional manufacturing of 2D materials still needed, because the field is growing, but I would say it hasn't grown far yet. So there is a lot of input needed to really enable large-scale, wearable electronic circuits. And as you can see on the bottom left, I have this kind of vision of, let's say, ideal wearable that could be, have built-in decision elements besides sensing elements that we already have. We could have built-in decision elements that would have skin-like textures, for example, would be completely imperceptible to the skin, have wireless self-powered system. There also technologies exist right now. And also sweat and UV permeable, that is very important for some of the applications. Yeah, that's pretty much it. On slide 38, I have to acknowledge, of course, the collaborators and my advisors and other PhD postdocs and grad students have been working on over this time. And thank you all for your attention.
Dimitri, thank you so much for this amazing presentation and for this work. It's so fascinating, and I can't even, it's so amazing. Usually I'm not so stupid, but I don't know what other word to say. Especially so for the cardiac pulses, what's the source to give them actual pulses? Do you need some type of electrical source outside? How does it work?
Yeah, so you mean for the last application on the on-heart electrophysiology? Yeah, so I mean, it is pretty much R&D set up right now, and there is a commercial tool. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a very standard device. Yes, we do have wires. It's all wired right now. So you do have a set of wires that come from a device that send this pulse through the graphene into the heart.
Oh, so you would have like a battery somewhere. Yeah,
I guess,
it's
yeah,
flat.
looking into the future, yes, like if we imagine like a whole wearable, let's say a whole implantable over the long time, yes, we would need some implanted battery as well.
Yeah, that's Yeah, but that's really fascinating that it's so small and flexible, and you could still manipulate the heart rate, like, or fix the heart rate activity, because right now the implants are not so flexible and so small, and sometimes, like, are you also planning to do some sort of defibrillator type of
Yeah, this
device?
is pretty much it. This is pretty much where we're going to. I didn't highlight all of the parts of the work. We also made like even smaller arrays because single measurements is good, but we need the whole array to use to sort of map. Let's say if you have an array of 34 or 64, 32 or 64 devices, for example, right? You can map the whole propagation of the AP within the heart, and you can detect the small vertices of where deficiency of the heart pacing happens, and then stimulate from the electrodes that's closer to there. Then another alternative, actually, I believe there are also some optical methods to detect this. Okay, maybe not in vivo, but at least ex vivo, for research purposes, there are optical ways, optical and fluorescent ways to measure this, to see this AP propagation throughout the heart. And this is another advantage of the graphene, that it can actually be used together with the method. You can have gold, but then gold is not transparent, so you cannot really correlate these two measurements at the same time. And then also another advantage here of graphene is also MRI transparent, so you can use it for other kind of imaging, in complementary together with other kinds of imaging like MRI.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting also to be more precise where you would give a pulse and how much, because current defibrillators, in my family we have like Brugada syndrome, like
Mm-hmm.
the sudden death. Um, Current defibrillators sometimes do more damage than they would sometimes need when they get triggered, because they kind of just, give the highest pulse, um, just in case, but a more precise device like this
Right.
would be better
Yeah,
time
yeah. I
if you
think
would.
this kind of cardiac defibrillators are probably one of the best sort of success stories for any implantables, but there is also a long way to go with advancing them. They're far from being advanced.
Yeah, but I'm glad you're working on it. And the the tattoos for the blood pressure, we had a sleep scientist here that developed this mattress, this special mattress with different types of temperatures, because sleep is very important. But also, he mentioned that the important time point to measure blood pressure is at night when people are sleeping. And I think your device, like your tattoo, is really good because it's really not comfortable to sleep with some sort of external
Yes,
device.
yes,
It's
definitely. Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. This is really another advantage of the graphene tattoos. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I want to give other people an opportunity to speak with you. So, yeah, Dr. Shah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dimitri. Absolutely, that was a fascinating work. And out of all of my questions, I was wondering to ask you about the drug testing. So I'm just assuming because we have a technology right now that we can track the, for example, byproduct of the opioids, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and we are using the graphene. But another important thing that you just mentioned in between your slide is about nerve implants and using of your technology. So we know that should we think about the, for example, biosynapses and transition in a synapses, and how did you just going through the different resources that they are talking about the using of the graphene, for example, for the nerve implants?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have further information?
Well, this is actually something I really think there is a good application of that, especially since we started doing this on heart implants, and I really where I am right now is actually looking for collaborators who are doing this. Somebody willing to just give a try and use this, within their standard routines. So right now I'm in the process of looking for collaborators for that. And as much as, up to my knowledge, these devices don't exist yet. Nobody has done this yet, and I'm really interested in doing
Yes,
that.
and one of the problem is toxicity of the graphene, and we know about the nerve implants that they had a testing with the graphene is, for example, a blood-brain barrier and moving from the blood-brain
Yes,
barrier.
yes.
That's why I just asked you about the
Yeah, okay.
advantages
This
versus
is great. Thank you
disadvantages.
actually for bringing this up. So I wanted to mention the biotoxicity and uh yes, there has been a lot of works on saying that graphene is toxic, but it has been a really big misconception, and I think it is very unfortunate. The problem is what the part of graphene, let's say graphene has at least 10 different versions of it. There are graphene oxide, there are graphene flakes, and there are graphene nanoflakes. The works in the very beginning, what people have done, they had graphite powders that has been resuspended in water or in any solvent, and then they had these small flakes of graphene that is, imagine atomically thin, in one dimension, and then something like 20 by 20 nanometers, or it's even less than a micron in another dimension. And then they put this solution into the cells, and clearly they have been absorbed by the cells. You can take silicon, you can take cloth, you can have aluminum, you can have anything of these dimensions, and it will be cytotoxic just because of the dimension mainly. And this is the biggest misconception there, that now everyone thinks that graphene could be toxic. The way that what we use is so-called CVD grown graphene. It is still one atom thin in one dimension, but it is grown literally 6 by 6 inch. And it is supported by a polymer, a very thin polymer. So none of this graphene is actually going into the blood. It's not going into the tissue. It's not flowing anywhere. And this is the case with most of the other electronic grade 2D materials. That's what I'm sort of trying to differentiate between flakes, suspensions, and electronic grade 2D materials.
I see. So, but in combination with some of the, for example, other polymers like a naphthalene, we might get some result. I get it, what you're talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's been a lot of work on this, mixing graphene nanoparticles with other polymers and then using them. So, but yeah, in our case, it is entirely biocompatible. So, like, potentially using it for the nerve implants, that would be a great application, in my opinion. I think there were some questions in the chat as well.
There are definitely questions in the chat. I had some questions. First, I want to say thank you for the presentation and the inclusion of the QR codes in the presentation. I think I've looked at least 100 or so recently, and you're one of 100 in terms of integration of QR code, and
I'm
it
glad
makes
that
sense.
works. I'm using my phone right now, so I thought, how can I make it easier for people with their phones?
Yeah, that was a great touch. I was curious, one, if you've ever tested these devices while on your own homebrew.
Have I tested on the homebrew?
Yeah, when you make your own beer, have you ever worn these devices?
Well, I believe these two projects are not really compatible, unfortunately. Well, though, I mean,
So I was curious.
potentially you could use it for some kind of biosensing. We have also done a lot of biosensing using graphene tattoos. Not graphene, not the tattoos, but using graphene sensors. We have another work hopefully coming out soon on using graphene tattoos or graphene devices, graphene transistor to measure COVID and flu, actually.
Oh wow. Do you want to talk about that at all? Because that's
I would rather maybe not at this point.
Sure,
Yeah.
no problem. I was curious about the degradation time for the tattoos. You had mentioned that they could be scratched off, but I was curious if they were absorbed by the skin and how you would even look for that.
Yeah, that's a good question. In one of the initial works, a person has been wearing them for 7 days with a very consecutive, very thorough monitoring. Nothing has been absorbed by the skin, but they start to sort of wear off, especially if you go to shower or just scratch them off. Then it's pretty easy to even pick them up. So if you want to pick them up, you just use like a scotch tape, stick them on the skin, and just remove it.
Oh wow, okay, that's a very yeah. I mean, that's a very efficient method of removal, huh?
Yeah.
If you just print it and slip it off a piece of paper, then just take it up with some tape. And also the hand grip part of your presentation. That's the secret to hypertrophied muscles. So if you want to get looking fit, do the hand grip part whenever you're working out. Just grip that thing.
Yeah, or it could be used for prosthetics like hand prosthetics or leg prosthetics, limb prosthetics applications. They're pretty much
I
based
have
on
a
the EMG
question.
signals.
So, oh, go ahead. Oh, am I good?
I was just gonna ask who else had questions. Go ahead.
Oh, so real quick. So like, it's pretty cool. Like really cool.
Thank you.
So if you can like, kind of read blood pressure and even affect it in some way, is it possible to like use this same technology to like determine like if a person is still alive? You know what I'm saying? Like there's like a lot of like dangerous jobs where like, communication isn't always like possible, but if you could have something that could transmit, and like maybe your blood your pulse or something, it could be like a signal of like this person's still alive. You know what I'm saying? Is that
Yeah,
possible with
yeah. This
technology
is
like
this
this?
is definitely possible. I mean, if you don't have blood pressure, there is a mortality sign. But clearly, I mean, it could be a little bit of an overkill for this specific application. What I mentioned earlier, there is a very simple way of measuring your heart activity, electrocardiogram, and you can just have these graphene tattoos, let's say somewhere around your chest. You can wear them, and there are devices, very simple devices that connects to your phone or wirelessly. And if there is a problem with your heart rate, or the heart rate dropped or disappeared, that would be your signal in the case.
Yeah, go ahead, Abyss. I wanted to say Abyss had the question.
Oh, thanks, Kat. Hi, Dimitri. Really great work. Really great presentation. This kind of takes me back because, like, when you're doing biomedical engineering, the first thing you're asked to do when you're studying instrumentation is design an ECG
Mm-hmm.
and sort of doing the Eindhoven um, triangle to essentially measure that. So yeah, but it's really cool that it can be miniaturized to this level, and I see lots of prospects to this work. Um, that being said, I do have a couple of questions for you. So the first one is that um, you demonstrated, or at least I think you had a plot about the impedance
Mm-hmm.
based on different types of materials, but skin is actually not. I mean, the conductance of skin is not always constant.
Oh yeah.
Like you always have like sweat essentially actually messed up the your impedance measurement. So I'm just wondering if you consider that and if you have seen the interpersonal variability when it comes to skin impedance to actually accurately measure blood pressure.
Yes. So first of all, yes, this is really great technical question. I love it. There is a really big variation, let's say, between person to person, or at least maybe not huge, but there is a variation between person to person when you measure impedance, and even within the same person, if it has been dehydrated, or then if somebody had like drunk maybe 2 liters of water, you would see some difference in that. With that said, so first, when we measured impedance, we did it on 5 to 7 subjects, I believe, and it was an array of devices, and there was a it was a very statistically large number of measurements that was done to sort of get the average there, and it sort of still follows the trend. Then when it comes to blood pressure, it actually doesn't matter. What I mentioned, we use this 4-point impedance system, 4-point measurement system, that we inject the current on the outer devices and measure the voltage on the inner ones. So that means we bypass the skin impedance, we really bypass the interface, and we only measure the tissue part. Now that is as well also whatever is constitution of the tissue of the subject, and what is it say, even dimension of the artery, how good is their artery, how good is their blood propagation. That is also very individualistic, yes. And this is exactly why, when we build this blood pressure model, right now at least, it is done per subject individually. So for each subject, there is an individual model. And it is within, I would say, the next research and development question to make this model more general. But we just need the data, and we need more subjects, we need access to clinical studies, and this is what's going on right now.
Got it. Actually, you kind of touched upon what was supposed to be my second question, which is when you create this, I guess like in optics we call it the banana, but I think it's probably the same thing where you can actually pass current to reach out to the arteries where you can measure the volume change. So how do you kind of assure that to essentially, reach out to like the arteries? Because the reason why I'm saying that is that arteries are usually deep within the body structure. That's one thing, and also you can potentially have like an EMG signal messing up your the signal that you want to acquire from blood pressure, and yeah. So those things considered, how do you assure that you're getting the right kind of signal?
Yes, fantastic technical question as well. So I guess there are a few levels to answer that. First, when we place the graphene tattoos, we measure location of the artery, at least roughly for each subject. You can use this Doppler thingy, and monitor where your blood, where your artery is, when we sort of mark it a little bit. So when we place the tattoos, we know that we place them on top of the arterial, over it. And then when we do the measurements, we're also right now focusing specifically on using the current with the frequency of 10 kilohertz. There has been a lot of studies on that before to try to figure out, which frequency of the current that is more specific to certain areas or certain parts of the skin or the tissue. So we're using this 10 kilohertz because it's one of the most sensitive part. And then when you inject the current, right, the current typical, let's say Kireev law or the law of current flow, it would flow on the lowest conduction path, right? You can have multiple paths, but there is a lowest conduction, it will go there. Blood and the artery is the lowest conduction part there. So all the muscles, tissue, fat, anything else that can still be there, the top of the skin specifically, they are more impeding, they are more resistive elements. So the artery is the lowest conduction path. So whatever the current we inject, we do have a simulation for that, but I believe over 90%, so majority of the current will go through the artery. And to bypass was also a very good question on the EMG signals. So, right, we inject the signal at 10 kilohertz, and then there is a lot of hardware and software filters that are done afterwards to detect the low frequency signals, but we're bypassing this EMG signal. So we might be having them in there, but because of the hardware and software filtering, we are removing them. So they are not anyhow affecting the signal.
Got it. Thank you. I do have a couple more questions, but since we have more people in the audience, so I'll yield my time.
I see Katie, Joyce, Mona, Moneypenny. Do you have questions?
I think Kirko was before me in PTR order.
I think you can go ahead. I think Kirko asked in between, so that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you. Hi, Dimitri. I'm from the UK, fascinated by what you're doing. I've been looking at putting together wearable technology that will pick up a multitude of different parameters across the body. And in the same way, I've been using things like the Vegas watch technologies, um, other technologies that can look at glands like the pineal gland, mainly because I'm one of these long COVID sufferers, which means that my blood sugar's all over the place, blood pressure's all over the place, everything's all over the place. And I'm looking to try and help sufferers going forward, of which there are already, 14.1 million in the US. And this sort of stuff that you're doing fascinates me. However, I've got a few questions if I could. So somebody mentioned obviously a slight problem with the toxicity being anaphylactic for some people, particularly those with asthma or eczema. And we have a correlation that the people generally who suffer from long COVID are likely more predisposed to have come from an asthmatic or certainly a respiratory allergic background. That slightly concerns me. In your test, it says that you only did it on 7 people. Did any of those 7 people have any background in asthma or a respiratory allergic condition?
Yes, well, honestly, I don't think I could even disclose this information even if I knew, because of the IRB and human subject documentation, and we have to be very specific about all the human subject work that's been done. But again, so like what I want to reiterate on the devices that we're having, they are not, we don't have any graphene flakes that flying off. So nobody is really inhaling the pieces of graphene as it has been done in those works that I'm aware of and I believe you're referring to. So this is a completely different
Okay.
type of material, like it's the same with asbestos stuff, right? It's the same with any material. If you make it flaky and small and let's say resuspended in air or water, you can make it toxic just because of the dimensional effect. The material that we're
Okay.
using is really atomically thin. It doesn't come off, doesn't get absorbed into the skin. It just stays there. We remove it, and that's it. So like nothing. So there is. We have 7 people in this study, but we have tested it for over 50 people, I believe, in the last 4 years that I'm here. Nobody complained on I don't know, skin problems or skin irritation or any other health problems. We didn't have that.
Okay, so the other thing is in the UK, we're doing experiments at the moment based on Yang's study, particularly with e-skin,
Mm-hmm.
and even using graphene as the conductor that it is to actually power energy through solar-powered e-skins. I know this sounds, well, it sounds futuristic because it is, but we've had solar-powered graphene skin used with prosthetics in
Mm-hmm.
the UK. And I'm just thinking about the opportunity to combine that sort of e-skin that Yang used in his own sort of blood pressure monitoring technology, obviously with using graphene oxide
Mm-hmm.
as part of that, but actually using it in addition to prosthetics.
Yeah.
Is that something you've looked at?
Well, that's not something we specifically looked at, but it sounds feasible, definitely. You might want to tune the flakes that you're using, maybe to have them more conductive, and it could be done in the same manner in a more agglomerated way, complex. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to say, I found an experiment in the UK that fascinates me. I'm not a qualified scientist by any means, but it's talking about what I'm, because like you can say, I'm looking at electromagnetic waves and frequencies and radiation. There's an article by Kai-Taek Lim, Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Assisted Reduced Graphene Oxide Substrates for Multi-Differentiation of Human Stem Cells. And it actually used the same sort of technology that you're talking about in it. But obviously in a way that we can use the electromagnetic fields with the graphene that you're using in the prosthetics, potentially with the solar. And to me, this seems like an amazing potential innovation.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
Have you
So,
done anything? Have you looked at it?
not really. Like a lot of this work, there are a lot of very different aspects, and if there is a specific lab on something, very difficult, to just you can just simply reproduce what others working on. So it's best to collaborate, for example. So in short, no, we haven't looked into that, but it does sound exciting.
It does sound exciting. Yeah, thank you very
Of
much for your
course.
time. Thank you.
Mona, did you have a question?
Yeah, so a part of it you Abyss asked, so you answered that part. But so I have like two
Hmm.
questions. One is, the first one is these tattoos. You said that they were able to cause defibrillate a shockable arrhythmia. I wanted to know, like, does it automatically do that? It detects it and then it corrects the whatever, irregular heart
Oh,
rate or
that would be
arrhythmia,
our
and then
goal.
it's
That would be our goal, let's say in a longer term. Right now, it is, everything in the R&D phase. It is something you do in the lab. So we could measure and stimulate at the same time, but it's still all, let's say, in the lab condition. So there is, of course, some lag in there, but it is possible to do the same. I mean, what I've shown, it was done on the same rat, right? So in the same rat, we measured it very quickly. We figured out that there is a problem. Well, it was chemically induced AV block, and then we could stimulate while measuring it. So it is possible to do it at the same time, but it's definitely not a full-scale product yet.
okay. And then my last question is, I guess for practical purposes, like if a person is wearing this and they're, let's say, at a high altitude, for example, an airplane, and they have maybe an arrhythmia or something, would it be able to, in that context, like correct it and alert, medic?
That is a good question. I have to say, I haven't thought about it. Thinking about it now, I would say it should not matter because the measurements are fully electrical, measuring and stimulation. So the altitude should not affect that. Yeah, of
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering
course.
my
Yeah.
abstract question.
Yeah, if nobody has a question, I know Abyss has probably some more questions, so and they are usually quite interesting. So would you still have a few minutes, Dimitri?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, happy to talk.
Thank you so much. Abyss, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, thank you, Kat. Yeah, so my question was actually on the sort of like the production phase because like you're basically prototyping
Hmm.
it, but since you're using chemical vapor deposition, I'm just wondering if you think that that's probably a way to kind of mass produce these kind of products, or do you go for something like etching process that is more kind of refined in a way? So yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it is the way, and this is the way. Um, uh, it is a way of producing the highest quality of graphene that you can do, considering all the thickness, conformability, and optical properties. We gotta stick to it. And graphene has as well been notoriously expensive over, let's say, last decade, but it has also been getting cheaper and cheaper. So if you look into it right now, you can get a 1 by 1 centimeter graphene, CVD grown, high scale, 100% monolayer, high quality electronic grade graphene for something like 50 cents per centimeter square. And this is still not the limit. I mean, there are a lot of companies that are doing that, and they have the capacity to say increase the production rate, hence decrease the price. They just need the industries to pick up. You need somebody to be interested in this scale before they can go into this larger scale to reduce the price. So it is already rather affordable. We are not growing the graphene ourselves. I would be spending all my time on just growing graphene in the scale that we are using it. So we're just buying it, and it's expensive in a way, but it's quite affordable as well. Yeah.
How
I
much
think
are
you
the
should take it
3D?
to Europe, considering it can generate its own electricity. With Europe's price of electricity, you'd be very popular, Dimitri.
Yeah.
How much are the 3D printers? Like, how precise do they have to be? You're laying down 1 or 2 layers, or maybe 3 layers of material. What's the cost of a 3D printer for this?
So it is not made using a 3D printer. So the graphene is grown. So it's a chemical vapor deposition growth. So it is grown on a film of copper. So you can imagine you have like a thin film of copper, like dimension of your, and pretty much the quality of your A4 paper sheet, pretty much, but it's copper, and it's just grown. So like it's put in the chamber, it's filled in a high vacuum. It gets the some carbon containing gas, temperature, vacuum, and then at some point the magic happens and you have the graphene grown on top of the copper. And then we do the transfer from the copper into PMMA and tattoo paper.
That makes sense. How long does that take?
The transfer itself doesn't take that long. I mean, it doesn't take much time. Well, it takes time, but it doesn't take effort, if that makes sense. So there are a lot of waiting and drying, wetting kind of steps in between. So there is actually, we do have a full nature protocols paper on that, like, step by step, how to get all the materials that you need, how to go from commercial supply of graphene and how to make the graphene tattoos. It explains all of the steps. You can do, so typically I could do, from having a graphene on copper to having it on the skin, let's say within 3 days. But I can do this for one piece of graphene tattoo that's, let's say, 1 by 1 centimeter. But in the same 3 days, I could do the same for few meters of the graphene tattoo. So it's very scalable.
You said 1 day?
2 to 3 days, the whole thing. But as I mentioned, yeah, there is a lot of wait time in between. It's more like 2 to 3 days with less than an hour efforts at
With
the
all
end.
the wait time. Yeah, got it. That makes
Yeah.
sense. But I mean, that's still pretty quick.
Yes, it is. It is surprisingly quick. Yes.
I know it's far ahead, but given the retail price of an Apple Watch or some other sort of wearable ECG blood pressure type technology, have you looked forward at all into the actual cost of it for somebody deciding whether or not to have something more permanent like a
Yeah.
tattoo, or you get these diabetes sort of puncts that you can have on your body? What's the retail sort of price comparison, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, imagine if 1 centimeter square of graphene would just cost you 50 cents, just the raw material. Clearly, we are not there yet for full industrial application. So none of the startups that would propose that would hardly survive this. It's not a great business model yet. But again, there are a lot of players right now emerging, and in Europe as well. There is Graphenia. There is Growtex in the US that grow graphene. There are a lot of companies coming in right now and making biosensors with the graphene. So there is a demand right now. The demand is increasing. So the price would be lowered over the next few years, I would say, by at least an order of magnitude. and would be more affordable than.
If somebody was having a titanium prosthetic, sorry, Abyss, if somebody was having a prosthetic anyway, like a titanium disc, I've got two in the back of my neck, could I come along and say, can you attach it to my titanium prosthetic that's already there, instead of having to have this in addition? Is it something that, you could sort of have as an add-on?
Probably yes. Yeah. I'm not sure what would be the case use for that, but hypothetically, there wouldn't be a problem to put a graphene tattoo on it.
But if somebody is having a prosthetic piece of metal in their body anyway, and they have a chance to have something that will monitor their blood pressure and other, useful parameters, I think there would be a good argument
Yeah,
for it.
well, it all depends, on the placement and what you can do with this specific location. So, for blood pressure, we need to place the tattoo specifically over the artery. For heart activity, you need a specific location. So, if the location of these electrode placements makes sense for the application that's in mind, yes, that would be
So
feasible.
pacemakers, for example, would they be okay?
Well, if you pacemakers, if you have this implant nearby your heart, yes, that would make sense. But if it's in the leg, that's not really a heart pacemaker, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like my last points were supposed to be somehow comments as opposed to questions. So the first one being that I think this would be a great technology to look into arterial stenosis. So basically, if you have like a blockage of our artery or arterioles in your limbs or any other place, I think these devices can pick it up much better than other imaging techniques or even before applying imaging techniques. So I think I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, it all depends on
It
like
is way
how.
more
Uh,
complex, but it is very interesting. I agree. Yes, it is very medically relevant. Yes. Yeah.
right, and I guess you kind of touched upon this about toxicity because early on in your slides I saw antimony
Mm-hmm.
selenate, I think, sheets. So these are sort of like chemicals that you really don't want um, to
Yes.
introduce
Yes.
into
So
the
those
body.
2D
So,
materials
but you
could
do
be still in question. Yes.
right. But since you're layering those with at least a biofriendly polymer, I think that's probably a safe way to go. But yeah, um, thanks for answering my questions. So this has been really interesting.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Sorry, last question. Photothermal technology or the use of has come up in a couple of the papers with similar examples of people trying to do this type of blood pressure and other monitoring, which obviously would be far less intrusive. In the same way, you can hold a thermometer using digital waves somebody's forehead in an airport before they go out with a fever or a COVID. Is it something that perhaps you think might be better than what you're currently doing? Has it not been capable of being done? I don't know. Is there a problem with doing blood pressure through photothermal technology?
So yeah, I'm not familiar with that photothermal technology you're referring to. I'll be happy to check out the work. Um, I mean, honestly, I have to say, any technology that could do this, I would be very much welcome to any market. You can even look actually on the market. There are a few startups that are trying to address this problem, and the fact that we are working and the fact that many people are still working on that means it is really one of the biggest problems in the modern medicine. I mean, we're still working, we're still using this cuff-based measurement system that has been developed over years ago, more than 100 years ago. Um, you go to the doctor office, they still use this cuff technology. So literally any device, any kind of approach that could actually do this on a long term, that would be the game changer.
Yeah, I just think it's brilliant. The idea, we've got very low medical resources worldwide, globally. We're struggling with nurses, doctors, all the rest of it. We've got people very heightened anxiety levels, particularly with what we've been through in the last couple of
Yeah.
years. To give people the ability, we know wearable technology has gone through the roof, to give people the ability to have something that would read their vitals and also alert them when the trend is bucked, so to speak, I just think it'd be amazing. And I really am grateful to listen to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your questions as well.
Terry had the question. Terry, go ahead.
Thank you very much for inviting me up on the stage or having me up on the stage. Interesting stuff. Always interested in the future of materials and the work going on with that. The company I'm working with right now, again, we were looking at certain graphene type materials. I was wondering, real quick, LiDAR does a lot of things. Somebody mentioned optothermal or photothermal technology. LiDAR is going to fill a lot of the gaps in, especially with medical technology, because it does allow a lot of the things you're talking about today. A mixture of infrared sensoring and small electrical impulse sensoring in one device. LiDAR. Okay, so that's one of the things I don't know if anybody you're familiar with, and I'm assuming everybody is. But I was going to ask the doctor, I put a comment in the chat thing too about other materials that are maybe more useful, especially in human machine interfaces, if you will. Phosphorine, borafine, things like that. Whether or not you've done anything with those, and how large of a piece, I know you mentioned one of your processes before, but how large of a piece of this material that you're working, this particular set of boron, I'm sorry,
Graphene.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You know what I'm getting at. I appreciate your time. It sounds really interesting. Going to look forward to sharing your work with the rest of the people at work tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So classically, the graphene tattoos that we're working using right now, the ones that placed on the skin, we can make them from anything, let's say from 3 by 3 millimeters, maybe even 2 by 2 millimeters, up to 2 by 2 meters. Okay, maybe 2 by 2 meters is too much, but it's a 2 by 2 inch very easily. So it all depends on application. Classically, we have something like 5 by 5 millimeters approximately. We also make them as like circle with like a donut shape, so they survive flexing of the skin. So in terms of wearables, these are the dimensions that we're working on with right now. To the other materials, from what you mentioned, yes, there are a lot of these, boronines, phosphorines, that could fill in some applications. They have bigger band gap compared to graphene. Well, graphene doesn't have a band gap. So yes, they could be used for some kind of optical or LED application. You could maybe imagine like LED within the skin. Maybe you can have like a display in the skin, like in all those futuristic movies, right? But then there are some problems with the studio material. So first of all, as I mentioned, we have cleared the name. I hope I have cleared the name of graphene as a biocompatible material. The problem with some of these materials, such as boron specifically and phosphorine, is not that they are not biocompatible. It's that some of them are actually not stable on air these days. So there is a lot of material science that still has to come into that. Some of them just, once you expose to air in the environment, they degrade pretty quickly. So this is there are really nice and flashy publications, but all this works and electronic properties and this kind of stuff is measured in vacuum, in a glow box with special environment. So there is a lot of material research to be done. And then to the question of usefulness, or let's say better usefulness compared to graphene, it has to come in a complex, in my opinion, depending what you want to do. So graphene it's hard to beat graphene in terms of combination of thickness, transparency, and conductivity, and electrical properties. Very hard to beat it on that side. Then if you want to build maybe whole circuits of devices, right? Not, let's say, not just have a sensor there, but also have a few transistors, signal amplifiers, and maybe RF communication chip. It's all part of the skin, or it's all part of the tattoo. That is a different question, and then you need to use other materials such as molybdenum disulfide, that's a transistor, so you can make a circuit. So it all comes in the complex um, of the application that you want to build, I believe.
Thank you very much. What you're telling us is, pretty much what we're looking at for the wave transmissibility properties of those materials. So it's we're just looking forward to more advancements in it. So keep at it. The more the better resolution we get with the surfaces that you guys are working on, the better off we're going to be, because we can get down to the one atom level, especially in a non-volatile environment. Then we can do a lot more stuff with those materials than we're able to do now, especially as you mentioned with high frequency complex signal.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of we can do some amazing things with deformations of those particular products to give us these all kinds of really cool frequency effects and things like that. So again, I'm going to step back into the audience, and thank you very much. We're gonna keep an eye on what you're doing, and you might get a call for us for some free samples. So thank you.
Of course, we'll be happy to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think you offered us a lot of time and answered a lot of our questions, and your work is really fascinating. And I agree also for people that are suffering from different paralysis and ALS and so on. Homeostasis is a big issue. Paralyzed people, and having this monitors and maybe some feedback loop that can stabilize, like maybe hopefully one day blood pressure, because blood pressure is also a huge issue in people that are paralyzed, to keep blood pressure up. So
Yeah, there are a lot of
temperature.
really specific medical applications on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think your research is making a way or a path for hopefully in the future to have this feedback loop regulations for people with different disorders. So thank you so much for doing this work and for using your smart brain for this. And hopefully you'll come back with updates one day, maybe when you published the paper you were talking about with the biosensors. Maybe you have time
Yeah, we'll be happy
to
to.
come
Yes,
back, and
definitely.
that would be wonderful. And thanks everyone for coming, asking questions, participating. If you like discussions like this, we have actually tomorrow leukemia research room, but at a different time at 2:30 p.m. EST. And we'll have more rooms next week about astrocytes as a computational unit, glioblastoma, brain invasion, how that works, 3D printed biomimetic artificial muscles, and goal directed and habitual behaviors. And then Dr. Michael Levine from Tufts, he is coming back. I don't know if you know the researcher that did the xenobots. He's coming back the third time actually, and sharing what's currently going on in his lab, and even sharing stuff that he didn't publish yet. So that's next week Friday. So we thank you everyone for coming, and special thanks, Dimitri. We wish you all the funding and all the luck for your projects. They are really important, I think, for future solving a lot of issues for a lot of people out there. And thank you again for coming and sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thank you. I was really happy to and glad to present my work here. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thanks.
you.
Was happy to see everyone. Okay, bye everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Close to
Bye, everyone.
3, 2.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye.